James Dargan.
James Dargan. Look at Dargan go. James Dargan.
Wow.
I first noticed James Dargan during my track sessions. I would feel the wind change as he glided past at absurd speeds, leaving all others in his talented wake. A short while later, I saw him in Jog On socks, and we got talking. At just 18 years of age, James Dargan is one of the most promising talents to emerge from the British distance running scene.
I think those sessions that I did with him probably saved me.
Even at this young age, James's mindset of self-belief is impressive.
I felt invincible and I was standing on those start lines going, I'm not going to lose this. I cannot see a way in which I lose this.
We talked about his feelings towards running in America.
I can't describe how excited I am.
The moments of doubt.
Just being on my own, what am I doing this for?
And what went wrong in 2022 during the London Mini Marathon when James made a fatal error.
What have you done?
If you feel inspired by this conversation, I have news. Jog On now runs group courses. At the time of recording, we actually just finished a faster 5K course. It ran for 5 weeks with weekly live presentations from myself, all training set by an elite runner, email support throughout, and a community page to support each other's journeys. Out of 13 5K attempts, 11 course members ran a faster 5K, an 85% success rate. I don't exaggerate when I say it's one of the best things I've ever done with Jog On. If you want to be a part of the next course, go to thisisjogon.com to learn more. So please, welcome to Jog On, James Dargan. I guess my first question, James, is to talk to you about this year specifically. You've had a couple of bumps in recent months. Just talk me through that. What happened and how are you now?
Yeah, so I think, well, I mean, we'll start like last year was best running year of my life. It was ridiculous. Came off the back of European track. Like never done anything like that before. It was a crazy experience. And I think everyone always says that like the year after the year you get good is the one that's like, it's hard. And I think I wasn't quite expecting it to be quite this rough. I picked up a stress fracture in my third metatarsal recently. So I've been out for pretty much the whole track season, which was really disappointing. Like early cross season went all right. I qualified for World Cross, which was pretty cool. I had a terrible race there, but I think the main goal was qualifying for it. Did decent in like the national events, came second English schools, second inter-counties. Yeah, and then the stress fracture hit. I was feeling really good going into track season. I was really excited off of what I'd run last year. I know I can go quicker. Mileage has gone up. I've done like more in the gym. I felt quicker, like faster, stronger. And then that hit, and it's just currently I'm trying to make the most of it. I feel like fit at the moment. I just need to get my legs working again because they're just not really rolling yet. Yeah, it's been pretty rough this year. I think it hasn't been ideal, but I think like it's just sort of part of the build, and it's what I'm going to look to do over the next couple of years that I think is going to make this year seem a lot more worthwhile in perspective.
The stress fracture in the metatarsal, tell me, did you know immediately there might be something like that? Do you have a dull ache in the foot? What did that feel like?
I don't know. So it came early track season, which was more after World Cross, I think. So I knew going into World Cross that it was sort of one race too many for me. It was just like off the back of quite a long cross season, which I'd really enjoyed and I'd run really well in. But I think I was like, this is just one too many. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I sort of just accepted that. I took like a week off afterwards. And then I started on the track properly. So more on the track, change of shoes, sort of more intense workouts. And I think that's when I started to feel it a little bit one day. I kept going for a couple of days because I was doing drills one night and I was like, this hurts. So I stopped a set early and then I tried to do the session the next day. It was weird because I put spikes on because I was trying to do sort of like race prep workout. So I put spikes on. I think this was when I spoke to you. So you're sort of like a bad omen on that. But
sorry.
Yeah, I put spikes on and then I felt fine. Took trainers off, like put trainers back on again. Really hurt. And at that point I was like, right, we're going to go to the hospital. We're going to get scanned. Saw a stress fracture. I was like, I'm not really surprised. Like disappointed, not really surprised. And then I think it sort of gave me a bit more clarity though in terms of I know what's wrong now and I can have a more definitive way to build back into it again.
What's been the tactic to work through that to maintain some sort of fitness? What have you been doing? Cross training? Like what's it been like?
I think cross training is everything. And I think now I'm looking at all like the American athletes. So you got like Parker Valverde in the US who like swears by cross training. Like Elliot Giles, I know does a lot of it. And I think that's sort of like now it's becoming a lot more important. And I think a lot more people are taking notice of the advantage of it. We have a spin bike here at home, so I've been on that a few times. Well, not a few times, a lot of time. I'm pretty fed up of staring at the wall now.
Yeah, of course.
just cross training a lot, trying to get all like stretching and like drills done, just making the most of what I have and what I'm allowed to do until the physio said I was allowed to start running again. And then started with like half an hour, really, really steady, practically walking. And then...
How did that feel in terms of fitness and the foot itself?
I haven't felt the foot in months, which has been really annoying. Like I felt it initially, and then I think we were really careful, probably overly careful with it. But I think looking at how I approached it and what I am hoping to build towards, I think I'm happy with the way we approached it. So we took it right back. I hadn't felt it in ages, started running again, still haven't felt it. And it's been fine, which is the really frustrating thing, because I know it's there, but I don't feel it, so I want to do more. And I think that's just sort of the natural, you're trying to find the right balance, like a sort of Goldilocks situation in terms of I don't want to do too little on it, but at the same time don't want to do too much, because that's going to obviously injure it again. So yeah, it's just finding the right balance currently.
Before this all happened, like you say, you had the World Cross experience. Yeah. Let's touch on that very briefly. I believe, if I'm thinking of the right interview, I watched an interview with you guys where you are absolutely dripping and talking about how it went. How did that performance go? Just talk to people. Where was it for people who don't know, and what was that experience like?
So it was in March time, I think, in Serbia. Incredibly random place to host a World Cross. That's not the first thing that comes to mind. So we went out a few days early, walked the course, did all that. It was a strong GB team, pretty young guys. I mean, obviously it's under 20, so we're all pretty young, but fairly inexperienced. I think one of us had gone Euros, three of us hadn't. I hadn't gone Euros. We all sort of hit Serbia. We're like, let's just see what we can do as a team. Obviously, go for the best individual performances you can. I think it was like 30 degrees on the day, something like that.
Wow,
it was crazy. I think a lot of people had said, don't get too excited, don't go out too hard. It was 8K. Like 4 laps of 2K loop. And I was like, yeah, obviously that's fine. I know not to go out too hard. I went out in what felt reasonable, looked at it, went through the first 400 in sub 60, and then first K was about 2:45-ish. And I felt like I was jogging, which was just the adrenaline. I was sitting about like 20th. I mean, it doesn't sound that high to me, having like gone with like the British crosses where I'm trying to get top 2, top 1. All the Africans come streaming past at the start. It's like, you know what, this is actually really cool. For the first K, and then I think the last 7K, once the heat hit and everything, was less cool and more just like dragging myself through while just some like random like European guys come flying past me. I'm like, yeah, that probably should have paced this better. But I think all in all, for the experience, I'm glad I did what I did now, because in the future that would have been a lot worse for me.
Yeah, there's a lesson there, I guess, as well, something to learn from. And like you say, it is amazing, I guess, the adrenaline in that moment. Yeah, you're surging really, and possibly not even realizing how much you're surging. Yeah,
like I was running way quicker than I've been on the track in spikes and that, like without trying, and it felt amazing. And it, like, obviously that's sort of like the experience you go for when you go for the World Under 20s and that. It's sort of a good practice, I suppose, for NCAAs, which I think last year went out in a 2:37 first K. Wow. Something ridiculous. So I think it's really good experience for me, and I'm like really excited to be able to like do these kind of things and build into it. And I think it's a great opportunity that's provided to us. But at the same time, it was quite a tough race to take afterwards. And I think that interview that you spoke of was just like, give me like 5 minutes, didn't do anything. I can't even remember what happened. I think I just like lay on the floor. I don't know if I passed out. I don't know what happened, but
you guys look absolutely drained that interview.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Tip water over my head to wake myself back up again, cool myself down. Went in to get the interview. It was just like all of us were just shattered. Some of us had really good runs, some of us not so much, but really, really, really hard, which I think is probably for the best.
What was your position that day?
Oh, you're going to make me say that. 47th.
And for you, where did that fit in terms of your expectations going into it? Where did you want to hit?
I think, so the year before was in Australia, and the boys that ran that for the UK went really well. But I think what a lot of people didn't look at in terms of that was that a lot of the African nations couldn't afford to get to Australia, and a lot of the Europeans didn't either. Top 30 would have been like incredible, and I think that would have been like awesome. And I think if I'd have paced it slightly better, if I'd have like raced slightly less, if I was slightly more fresh, I might have been able to do it. But top 30 is awesome, but it's not really anything yet, and it's not really expected anything yet. It was more balancing the expectations with the reality on the day. And I think when I woke up that morning and it was 30 degrees, me being ginger, I was like, yeah, this is going to be an interesting day. It could go really well, could go really badly, and we'll just sort of see how it goes.
How have you been with heat in the past and heat running in general?
I'm normally okay with it. I think the one time I was really nervous towards it was Jerusalem, So for the European track, my race was in the evening. It was 18 degrees.
Okay.
All the stuff I'd packed into this like little suitcase, I had to like leave some shoes behind. Didn't need any of it. I think on that day didn't deal with it all that well. I think over 8K is slightly different.
You talk about it being possibly one race too many, and hence maybe one of the reasons that this stress fracture came about. Looking back now, if you had your chance to do, or in a future World Cross, would you look at trying to do a little bit less racing, building up to your a little bit fresher legs? Would you approach that any differently?
I'm not really sure, because I think at this age, I'm just trying to sort of approach national champs with as much like strength as I can, and just sort of use any extras as like a really good experience, but like not particularly work towards them as such. I think World Cross was really late, and obviously British cross seasons are really long, so from like September to March time. So I think I'm quite happy with how I approached it. I think I went all right. I paced myself well for the national races, like the ones that I was prioritising, so English schools. I ran out of energy a bit towards the end, but I think I don't think I'd have changed how I did it, because the races that I prioritised went well, and I got to World Cross. I got the vest, which was what I really wanted from the season. Probably should have taken another maybe week off afterwards, so I wouldn't be in this situation. But it's, you live and you learn, I think, and like I can recover from it quickly. I can keep moving from it.
And it's a great time to learn, being 18 with a full career ahead of you. It's a wonderful lesson to learn this early on, I think, and build that experience that's so important for running on the big stages. Let's rewind the clock a little bit then, James. You know, we're talking about World Cross, but let's talk about how you got to this point. A little while back, only a few years back, really, we have to go to get quite a young James, who's quite interested in football at the time, and really it sounds like running became a way to get a little bit fitter at football. You went out for runs with your mum. Talk me through that. Did you enjoy it at the time, going out for those runs? How long did it take before you started to click and think, I quite like this? So I think running, I started playing football, as most like kids this age do, and I also swam at that age, and I think running sort of came as a supplement to football. I think when I was 5 was probably the first time I can remember properly going out with my mum, like around the lake. I think I enjoyed it just because I went out with my mum, not so much the running itself. I enjoyed it because I could run for football and I could do all that. When I started getting a little bit more serious, I started pushing it alongside football, because I got invited to some sort of like higher academies and that for football. But I think that was when I sort of had to make the decision of what do I want to do, because I think swimming was going all right at the time. Like I was sort of county level. Football was going well, running was going well, and I think I looked at that, and I think me and my mum had also had the approach that puberty will sort of change a lot. Like Were you tall when you were young?
Yeah, I was always one of the taller ones. I think it was more in terms of like how like muscles developed. We always looked at puberty. I think we always looked at, say, I can't remember who it was. There was some like various athletes at the time that we looked at and went, they were like Paula Radcliffe, for example. I remember something like she came like 200th in her first English school, something like that.
Yeah.
And then really came through after a while. So I think I was always mid-level. I think at that point I remember I went to the local intercounty, to the regional intercounty. I think I was year 5 and 6. Came 71st. I was like, that was like really, really cool, and I really loved it. And I think we always sort of approached it like puberty will tell you what is right to do, because everyone hits it differently. And so I think I hit puberty, went upwards, inwards. My mates playing football went out. My swimming mates all went out as well. And I think at that point I was like, I'm getting left behind in all like strength development stuff in terms of like head to head physical strength. So I think that's when running became a more viable option for me, as I think my legs developed. I think swimming helped to really develop like the physical side of the sport, and also the sort of mental, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get in a cold pool before school is not the most glamorous thing. I think football helped to develop the more sort of tactical aspects in terms of like, this is how you win, this is what you need to do. And I think at the point where I was like, this is what I want, I think I need to start focusing on running, became the point where football was more kick the ball up, and if you can't hit the ball, hit the man kind of thing. So it was like, this isn't what I need, this is not a good mix for me. So I think running became the goal, and then football sort of became on the side, like just something I do for a bit of fun. I stopped swimming after a while just because just the strength in my shoulders was just gone, like just didn't really exist anymore, because I was running it all off. As we said, we'd made itself the option that I was going to choose.
It's something that's often not discussed, that kind of the genetic element of puberty can just play such a big role in sort of predetermining what body type you have and maybe steers you in a certain direction. It's good that you had this kind of array of options to maybe hand select from, depending on how you ended up coming through your teenage years, and that maybe that sort of self-selected it a little bit. I know for some people they identify quite hard and they're specializing quite early.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you were keeping it a little broader for a little bit longer, which seems to have benefited you in a big way, as you say, for some of those individual reasons and those benefits. So it's quite cool. Whereas there are people who, see themselves as a runner and then go through puberty and, maybe fill out, get a lot of muscle, stay at 5'7" or whatever, and it's just not worked out for them. So I read before that when we talked about one of the things that kickstarted your love of running, I think you described it in Athletics Weekly, was winning a local cross-country league, and about that being a big moment. Talk me through that and what that experience was like, that you won a local cross-country league, and that really was a switch for you, I think.
Yeah, to be fair, I think it wasn't so much I won it, more as I got quite lucky with it. Because
there was a technicality or something.
Yeah, there was quite a harsh technicality. So I'd run the league for years. I'd grown up at my local club, Camberley. They sort of focused on the league. It was like, it's the board league. Like all the local clubs send all the younger guys just to sort of get some experience, run. It was like maybe like 3K. I've been sort of developing through that for a while. I think that year I'd got my first county vest. So I'd run for Surrey for the first time. I think I came second in the first one. I won the next one, second in the next one, because it was me versus this guy called Henry, who's one of my really close mates now. So the final one, we were on a draw going into the final one. I think he'd won one more than me. And then there was nationals the day before. So I didn't qualify for nationals. He did. So he ran it and then chose not to run the board league the next day. Mm-hmm. And then they announced on the day that they were going to put double points on the final board league, which I ran and he didn't, which I then won. Wow. And so I got the win for it. He got slightly done in by the process, but I think that was the first time that I looked at something and went, I'm consistently winning the sort of local leagues, and I can look towards like now county events as the step towards regional and then the step towards national. This could go somewhere. I can take this further. I can do more.
You're training at that point. Do you remember back then what you were doing in miles or kilometers per week?
I think I remember the sort of average session I was doing might have been like 400-600s on the track, and then maybe some like 100-meter sprints just as a race against my mates in the car park afterwards.
Yeah, I know we touched on it early on, but let's recap it. To sort of chronologically, you get a vest. Lockdown, as you've talked about before in interviews, certainly was one of the tougher times, I think, when we look at the James Dargan career. Yeah. Lockdown was. Talk to me about going into lockdown and what was tough about it for you in terms of your running.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, like over my career, with it not being all that long yet, I think lockdown's like quite a like sizable chunk of time. And I think as it was for everyone, it was like really hard. So I think I was going into it with a lot of momentum. Got my vest. I was like, this is like awesome. I'm running really well. Hit lockdown. I was doing like sessions with my mum. Like she was out on the bike, like when you're allowed out in two people, running. And I think after a while, it just sort of became, what am I doing this for? Like I've got the vest. I've like, this is awesome. What can I do with this? It doesn't feel like I'm working towards anything, which I think I've always really struggled with.
You need that goal.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when just being on my own, started slowing down. I felt like I sort of hit a wall. It was just like slowing down slowly, and then
just losing momentum because you weren't quite as motivated or as inspired.
I think I was losing momentum, and it just sort of felt like one day into the next. Like I wasn't seeing anyone outside. It felt very isolating, and running being like such a solo sport. Whereas like I knew my mates playing football were like on like calls with their like teammates and stuff, and like it wasn't the same for me. And so I think when third lockdown hit, and we were allowed to like mix with other households, I went out with my mate Dan, who I'd mentioned, who also got an England vest at that time, started going back out again. He'd been an absolute demon over lockdown, was doing like crazy runs, was running insanely well. And I think I came out of that a little bit further behind than I should have been. So the chance to sort of meet with him, run with him, suddenly went like, I'm back on it again. Like I remember why I did this. I was fairly fit, like I was in a decent place. But I think those sessions that I did with him towards the end, before we got back into group training, back into racing again, probably saved me in terms of like drag me back out, so I wouldn't hit races and be like come from like fourth in the nationals to like fourth locally just because I hadn't done enough. I think I knew in myself I hadn't done enough. The spark sort of reignited and I got the momentum back, and I started working because of like a couple months of like really hard work with Dan. which I think, yeah, as I said, saved me. Like I wouldn't have come out anywhere near as strong as I did without that.
That's really interesting, isn't it? I know that in the Athletics Weekly article I read, you referenced Dan, and it's clearly a big turning point. He's a sort of this significant character within the comeback and drags you back to it. It feels to me like, you've talked before about one of the things you like about running is the people. It seems like you get a lot of strength from that kind of that teamwork. You're right, our sport is incredibly solo, and lockdown really exposed how solo running is. And actually, sometimes it is those sessions and that track work where you are part of a team, or when you're going out to World Cross, that makes you feel more like it. So again, it's good that you've acknowledged that, and it seems like that's also a bit of a driver for you to do well. It seems like you do well with a bit of a network around you as well. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think the group we have at Aldershot is incredible. Like there's 10, 15 guys around my age.
Very good standard.
Yeah, all very, very, very good guys. And I think that's sort of what gets me out. Like as much as you have to do all the solo runs, you have to do all of that. I think being able to turn up and knowing that the guys that I'm working with are like working towards similar things to me, we're all like racing each other, we're all having a laugh with it, like we're all enjoying ourselves. And I think sort of being able to have that group that you work with, especially towards like major events when maybe like some of them didn't make them, so they're sort of just like working and like supporting you in training. I think you work more for like them as much as you work for yourself. And I think I end up racing knowing the work that they've put in for me as well as my own. And then obviously you've got the like wider support. So I've got my parents. My grandma is a huge fan. I know she's always watching. As much as I'm racing for my own vest, for my own performances, I'm racing for them to be able to see that and for them to be able to know that whatever they did for me has a purpose as well.
It's paying off, yeah.
Yeah.
It brings you up a level, I think. It drags you up to that next. It's like people can get very, very good through an ability, a talent, and then working very hard.
Yeah.
But sometimes it takes that mix of the other people coming in around you to
I think
help you and support
it takes a lot of weight off you in training as well. Because I think I found recently, having not really trained that much, just sort of been on my own, especially on the bike, it's sort of like another lockdown. It feels like that in terms of what am I doing? I know I've obviously got more of a goal to work towards in terms of being fit for the NCAA and all that. But it's just sort of been like, I'm not turning up. I can't like warm up with the boys and like mess around or like push one of them in the canal for a laugh. So it's more just like, I'm really looking forward to like that side of getting back into running as well as just the sheer, like I'm on form. I feel really good. I can win races. I can just racing generally. So I think it's sort of like a mixture of the two that I'm trying to get back into.
James, you're a really interesting stage. You're 18 years old. It's sort of very much a welcome to adulthood stage. But there's no doubt about it. You are still classified in those teenage years. Technically, you've got one more year of that. You're currently in racing as an under 20. Naturally, what comes with that, exams are over now for you. You're in a stage of life where there's a huge social scene. There's a lot of people around who... well, let's be honest, for a lot of them, and you'll have these friends who, going out and having a drink, being with friends on that social scene is a huge part of their life and a big driver. And at your level and being this talent coming through, there is that weight on your shoulders of you have to perhaps act a little more sort of beyond your years slightly and be a little more mature. How have you found that balance over the last couple of years at this age, trying to balance elite level training and running at your age with the pull of the social side? Have you found a balance yet? Is it difficult?
I'm very lucky to be in the situation I am. Like I've got sort of like great group of mates around me, and like a lot of them are in a similar situation to me. So I think I'll say sacrifices, but it's the sacrifices I make in terms of I don't drink, I eat well. I think a lot, as much as they are for running, I think I enjoy doing them myself just to sort of feel good and know that I'm doing sort of working towards something. So I think, obviously, I feel a lot of the time like if my mates are going out and this and I don't go out with them because I've got a race the next day or something. As much as it's tough, I think I've built that in over time. And I think I accept the fact that that's how it's going to be for me. And if I want to keep progressing, that's how it's going to have to stay. So I think as I've grown up and as I've sort of started taking running more seriously, it's been quite a nice timeline alongside. It's sort of run quite parallel to everyone else is going out. You don't go out. That's just how it is. And I think I've sort of like learning to accept that fact. And I'm more than just a runner, which is a lot of the time what I try and say when people introduce me to their mates. It's like, oh, this guy runs. I'm like, I run, but then I also have a lot more going for me.
Yeah.
So I think, facets. So I think I've reached quite a good balance recently. I think I've found in terms of after exams, obviously, because they were a mess for me. Like that was really tough.
In what way?
I think a lot of people see the US system as you've signed, you're sorted, you don't even need to go to school anymore. Like as long as you go to school, as long as you get the exams done, it doesn't matter. I think going to Stanford as well has a slightly more pressure in terms of they do still expect grades. So as much as I've been running focused, I think I've also had to really, really watch that I'm doing everything I can for school. And I think I've always had to take the view, I think currently while I'm still at school, that academics has to come first for me. I've had to change the way I train a bit, like maybe bike rather than run one day just so I can sort of stay at home and stay sort of more locally. It was tough over exams for me. I still don't feel like I'm there yet. Even with the exams done, I think I need those results to go, it's actually happening. Like I think I've sort of refused to admit to myself that it's real yet, just because, like, what if everything goes wrong? What if...
It's a little bit of self-protection as well.
Yeah, what if I just fell asleep one exam and like actually just didn't write anything when I dreamed I did? So yeah, I think there's been a lot of sort of exam pressure, which I think I've put more on myself than I needed to. But at the same time, I think that was probably for the best, because after year one at college, which was a big change for me because I was coming from a lot more like protected environment at secondary school into college, which was just like you're on your own, which I think was a good step towards uni, but I didn't treat it very well. So I think going into the second year, I've had to really up the academics alongside running. And so I think that's where I've felt a lot more stress from school, and I've put a lot more stress on like social stuff because it's my fault, and I accept that that's my fault from first year. But I think the balance hasn't felt as good. But I think now I'm hitting the summer, done with exams, done with school. I think I'm trying to take more time to spend time with my mates that I'm obviously not going to see for long periods of time in the next 4 years, and sort of just accept that that doesn't have to come with all the drinking and all that rubbish that I think generally is put on like my age group a lot of the time, which fair enough, a lot of it.
Yeah. But you're right. There are alternatives, and sometimes people sort of see that as the social option.
Yeah.
When there are other activities, from cinemas to trips away to eating out at a restaurant, for example. It doesn't have to be house party, club, etc. I spoke to Woody Jerome on the podcast a little while back before he was leaving for the States to go run out there. Obviously, a fantastic runner himself. And Woody and I chatted a little bit about the dropout rate that can happen within running. You've sort of probably moved through that stage now at 18. By that point, you've kind of got a little bit of you've kind of finding who's sticking around in the sport. But if you look back a few years, have you known a lot of guys sort of come and go that perhaps you did train quite closely with, but they sort of step away from running and you kind of lose a bit of contact, because once they're not running, we obviously are not seeing them three times a week or whatever it was. Have you had much of that, people dropping away at all?
I think for me, coming onto the scene, because I think it was a lot more sudden for me because I had just the breakthrough English schools. So I think a lot of the friends that I made post-lockdown, because there were some really cool events in terms of like school games and that, where all like the sort of higher level England guys all go. So I think a lot of them have stuck around. It's tough because if you're better at the sport, like I've got some support from New Balance. I've got like the help. I've met with the selectors. I've been on the youth talent program for England. So I think a lot of the people that I see around there have stuck around. But I think it's more like at my last club, a lot of them don't run anymore. And I think I still see some of them around. I think my circles have changed as I interact. And that sounds really elitist and that sounds terrible for me. But I think that's just sort of...
It's the truth at the end of the day. When you spend that much time dedicated to one pursuit, which is running in this case, then it's going to be hard. If someone is not in that world, it's hard to stay within certain circles if that circle doesn't feature running, because it's such a big part of your life now. Let's look at last year then, James. You've already referenced the fact that it was a really strong year for you, 2023. Arguably, you could talk about it does set the bar a little high, but then, if you want to go on to do big things, you got to push that bar up. A big moment, I think it's fair to say, is a 5,000 that you do at Battersea. I want to ask you about your expectations that day, but you run 14:03, a wonderful time. Did you have any ideas that day that was a potential time you could run?
Not so much. I think I was going into that was my first race of the season. I'd done limited speed work compared to what I wanted to do. I think I was more approaching that in terms of I had 3 Euro standards that I wanted to hit. I wanted to get the 15, 3K, 5K. I'd got really close to the 3K the year before. I think I might have got it, but like not been like top 3 or something. So I hadn't done trials for some reason. So I think I was going into it going, there's 3 possible times I could get. I think the Euro standard last year was 14:15 15-ish. So I was going into it with that in mind. I think I had my mum at 200 who had all the paces written down and was either going to go, you're on, you're behind, never says you're ahead, she always says you're behind, she never says you're on. This could be a really good opportunity for me to get this time if I just sit on the back, be sensible with it. I started fairly well. It wasn't anything special. I was about on the right pace that I need to be, just did the first, because 12 and a half laps now it doesn't sound like too much. 5K doesn't sound a lot, but I think it's a lot when you're moving at like a decent speed. I went into it knowing I was going to be able to do the time. I knew I was going to be able to there. So lapping round I think I was fairly on it. And then suddenly I think I just remembered there was a break. A couple of maybe like 3-4 places ahead of me. We were just in like a sort of like train running around. Break occurred. I was like, you know what have we got to lose? First race of the season. I can just do another one like next week. It's not the end of the world. So I went, let's get on the back of this. Let's see what happens. And I felt really good. Like, I hadn't felt that strong in a race before, which I think was sort of a testament to the mileage that I've done over the cross season, carrying it through. Yeah, I think I hit the last K. I was like, we've got to be well in. I don't look at the time. I don't listen to anything around me when I run. It's just like everything goes silent. It's just like focus.
Tunnel vision a little bit.
Yeah, it's quite strange. I love the feeling. It's quite strange. Yeah, I think I just hit the last K. It came towards like last 400. I felt a lot in my legs. I was like, this is really good. Sped it up, did as much as I could, hit the line, went over it, and it was like 14:03, 14:02, whatever it was, I can't remember now. And just like, wow. And I think I finished that race. There was a steeple barrier over the side. I just remember draping myself over that just to get my like breath back. And then I sort of stood up and like I turned, I looked at my mum, I walked towards her, and I was just like, I feel really strong. That was the first time this is happening. Like, I feel that I know I can do a lot this year. And that, like, I think I knew, having finished that Euros was I was going to make it happen. And I think I ended up doing the 5K. I got all the 3 standards that I wanted to that year, which was amazing. But I think, yeah, that was sort of the start of the big sort of confidence snowball that began.
You need a performance like that, I think, to drive it home and make you realise what the potential is. Yeah. It was 14:03. How much does it play on your mind, that sort of golden line of breaking 14 minutes for the first time? Have you thought about that much?
Yeah, I have. I think with my training, I think I've always been pretty careful to leave room to be able to improve in the future. Like, I want to be able to hit America with a lot of like uptake and know that if I up my mileage, I can change my gym, I can change my nutrition. I've never gone on a camp. Like, just quite, I say easy fixes, but like they're very minimal, but I think will make a big difference for me. I've sort of left them in the knowledge that I can do more in order to be able to go keep improving, keep pushing forwards, and knowing that like in America, I think I will be directed better towards mileage. Like, it'll be done better than I could do here with like the resources that I have, as good as they are. As much as I like appreciate them, I think I've got to be realistic with it. So I think the 14, I was really excited to break this year. I think I had a 5K planned, the same one. I was going to go back to Battersea again. I think winning time was 13:45 this year. Yeah. And I think I was in that session that I said I'd done with spikes on, where I'd sort of not felt the stress fracture. I was lapping 13:40 pace for Ks like quite consistently, and I felt really good. And I know with a bit of adrenaline and like just on race day, obviously you can go a lot quicker. So I think I knew that I had something big in me, and then it unfortunately got injured. And I think that's going to be something that I look to next year, hit a 5K, and I want to like smash 14 out of the water, just to prove to myself as much as to anyone else that I would have done it this year, and that I've still got a lot in my legs, and I've still got a lot of improvement that I can make in my training.
We've taken a long time to build the bright orange Jog On training plans to give runners the best chance of getting to their next running goal. We've now had over 1,000 plans purchased, the big reasons being that the plans are easy to use, effective, and available for 5K, 10K, and half marathon. If you want to improve your running, have a look at thisisjogon.com. How much longer are you an under 20 for?
I've got up to European cross, so I'm still eligible for Euro under 20 cross, and then World cross I'm not eligible anymore for.
I want to show you this piece of paper. It's this is a list of the British all-time rankings for 5,000 for under 20s. I'll show it to you. I've highlighted where your performance is. You're 29th. When you look at that, Do you think that there would be any time to move up while still in under 20 by running a 5,000? Or do you think that that's the...
I would have loved to move it up this season. I think this season would have been the one where I'd go like smash that, try and get like, I don't know, top 10.
There was an interview that I read where you talked about, I think people who actually saw you run at the track would almost laugh at this compared to how fast they would see you. But you talk about your kick or like that real speed being almost non-existent.
Yeah.
It seems like you consider, for example, you've got an 800, 159. For many people listening, absolutely rapid. But for you, when you start to move up and see those real 800 meter runners, it seems like your path is moving more and more towards middle and up to long. And now that you've had this 5,000, is it fair to say that 5,000 is probably going to be a focus for you over the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think I want to try still keeping in the 1,500 because I really enjoy it. I think that's probably my favorite race to actually race.
Do you feel like it will keep you sharp as well?
Yeah, I think 15 training is obviously very different to 5. I think that 800 I will hopefully look to change one day because that 159, as great it is going sub 2, I think for me, I want to go a lot quicker than that.
I think you will.
Yeah, but I think 5 is going to be the realistic goal. But I think you're always going to need a bit of that speed to carry you through in like the bigger races. Which I think, like last year, last track season, I was really lucky. I won English schools. I think I only lost once to an under 20 in that whole season, and I think I was standing on every start line. As I said, the confidence snowball. I felt invincible, and I was standing on those start lines going, I'm not going to lose this. I cannot see a way in which I lose this. And I think as much as I say my speed isn't existent, I think when I really believe that I can do it, and I think I've got that sort of like mental grit towards the end of the race where maybe I'm not the quickest or I don't have like the sharpest kick, but if I can wind up a little bit earlier, if I can play it right, if I can get within sort of like the right sort of distance to someone, I will want it more and I can win that. And I've got belief in that. So I think obviously speed is something I'm going to need to develop and it's something I'm going to need to keep. But I think I will look to sort of move towards 5K, hopefully run some really quick times, but at the same time be able to just know that I can win those championship races just by staying within that distance, making sure I've got enough of a kick to carry me through and like make sure that the belief I have in myself is founded on a really strong base of you're strong, you're quick, you have got what it takes to do that kind of thing.
Looking forward to the future a little bit, and it may be too early to ask this to you at 18 years of age, but when you look long term, you've had these successes on the track, you've had these successes in cross country. The big sort of, ignoring trail for a moment, the big other surface is, of course, road.
Yeah.
We'll talk in a moment about your experiences with Mini London Marathon, for example. Do you see yourself in your 20s moving to some road-based stuff? Do you think for now you just want to keep your focus on track and cross country?
I mean, cross is really important in development, especially like UK cross is amazing. Yeah. I think as hard and as horrible and as much as everyone moans about it.
They do.
Yeah, I think without those pretty horrible, muddy, disgusting courses like Liverpool, like Parliament Hill, I wouldn't have had that base because I never did really like well track at all. I never did well in it. I was never like quick. I was never that strong over like the longer ones. So I think cross was where I started. And I think as much as I'd love to sort of move away from it in the future, as much as I say that, I think it is still a really key part, especially in the NCAA system, of just developing, making sure you got that mileage base. Softer surface always works, like training. I think I love road relays, which are only 5K. As I sort of look to move up on the track, so sort of start focusing 5K, possibly get some 10s done, I might look to sort of start moving roads. Maybe sort of like long-term future would make sense to be, in terms of maybe halves, full marathons, stuff like that. But I think for now, I'm happier with less mileage. Marathon training is a long way off. Not that it's anything like terrible. And I think marathons like awesome. And I'd love to do them. I really want to do them. I want to do a marathon. I want to do an Ironman. I want to do that kind of thing when I'm older. I think I want to stick to the track, make sure I use cross country for development over the next few years. And then I'll see what sort of mileage I'm on, what I think is the right sort of move to make in terms of, do I go for world crosses still as a senior alongside the track, which I'll obviously still be going for, or do I look to move more road based and start working towards that?
There's also a big element of trying to not rush ahead, and you see people who get very excited and they're just looking for the next thing, and they're not really living in the moment and just sitting there in a moment, whether it be in Serbia, dripping wet from the heat, and just saying, do you know what, that was an amazing experience. And I think that's one of the biggest, most important things. And I know that more experienced athletes, I've heard them before talk to younger athletes and say, just kind of soak in what you're doing right now, because you never know what's around the corner. You don't know when an injury can come. You don't know, well, you've learned this very recently as well. You don't know when that running gets snatched away from you, and before you know it, you're stuck on a bike staring at a wall wishing you could interact with someone again. So I think it's nice that you are staying a little more narrow in that window focus at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
But while keeping in the back of your mind, one day. London Mini Marathon, let's touch on that. It's an interesting story because 2022, you talk about, I want to talk about the success is 2023, but 2022, you talked about kicking early. I didn't actually know this story. Kicking early and going from first back to fifth. I don't want to drag up a bad memory because
no, I think it's quite a good one from me because
what happened in that day?
So mini marathon works so it's normally the day before a marathon, maybe on the morning, depending how it works. You get to London, you get to the hotel, everyone's in the same hotel. You go from the hotel straight to a warm up area. Warm up maybe for like 10-15 minutes and you go. Like there is no course walking as much as you probably shouldn't need it for the London Marathon, but there's none of that. So I think I went in 2022 being my first mini marathon.
What's the distance they get you to run?
It's 2.6k. It used to be 2.6 miles, but it's the last 2.6k. So you finish in front of Buckingham Palace. So
this thing is short and fast.
Yeah, it's very quick. So I think you've got everyone from like the 800 guys to the like 5k guys there, which is it, and it's start of the season, so it's really cool. I think 2022, first time I'd done it, started really well. I think I was like top group. There were like 5 guys that I knew. We were all sort of like together, like working through. Obviously, running the marathon, big building on the left, right turn, go. Like big building being Buckingham Palace, which should obviously be recognisable to anyone normal. I remember running it, came around this corner. There was like a sort of fence up. So it's like it was covering. So, but I saw like a big building. I was like surely we get like this must be it then. Like there was a bridge over the top, which is obviously London Marathon. There's a bridge. Everything just seemed right to me. And so in my sort of like race fatigued mind, I was like, yeah, you know what? This is where we go. Like, let's do this. We're almost there. And I started going. No one went with me, and I was like, oh my god, I've killed them. Like I've done it. Like this is great. And then turned another corner. I was like, oh, Buckingham Palace is there, which means there's still another straight. And I think the lactic wave just hit me around that corner, as well as just the mental sudden, just like, what have you done? Like, you donkey. It's not, you went way too early. That's Buckingham Palace, like probably the most recognisable British landmark. Like, how have you messed this up? And I think the wave of lactic hit me around that corner. And just bang, bang, bang. Just the guys kept passing. I was like, oh my God, what have I done here? So I was fuming after that. That was entirely my fault. Messed up the chance to meet Kipchoge on the podium, which he was handing out the medals.
Wow,
I was like, that's so annoying. So I think I went in 2023 knowing where Buckingham Palace was, which is crazy to me. And then
you got something to prove at that point. You know, you want to have a good experience. You want to go for the win.
Yeah, of course. And I think they changed the course up slightly, which was really cool. Moved it so it wasn't just straight turn into Buckingham Palace. It was, you go around the front of it and then up the road there's like a roundabout. You do like a 180 and then you run back down again, which is really cool. You get to see where everyone else is. So I think there was a group of like 5 of us. Again, it was just like, repeating itself. I was like, oh God, but I knew where it was this time. I was like, this is awesome. So it's pretty much, you could see like the final straight because it's straight in front of you and a little left turn. And like, that's where you know it is. And so there was about 600 to go around that corner. I felt really strong, and I think one of the boys started to move, and so I just sort of stuck in there, just kept sticking in. There were just like a few of us, and then each time like someone dropped off every like 100 meters, and then I came around to that last like 300, I think it was, and just suddenly, I know I said I don't have a kick, but like I don't know what happened that day, and I was just flying. I was just like, I think that last 100 meters, second most painful 100 meters of my life, the lactic just killed me. And came through the line, won it, was amazing. I think the first most painful I will touch on was Europeans. Having been, I was third into the final 100 meters, just absolutely just going for it. And then this little Austrian bloke came past me, like this little quiff, came flying past, and I'm never going to get that image out of my head. And then, I finished that race, threw up 6 times from the lactic and just died. But yeah, finishing mini marathon, won it. The demons were met from last year, and I think met Jake Whiteman, which was awesome.
I saw the photo of him handing you the medal.
Yeah, he signed my forehead the night before, which was awesome.
Yeah,
but
I read that about that as well.
But then it turns out if you turn over in the night and you get your forehead on the pillow, it rubs off. So I had like a black line across my pillow in the morning, which I just sort of hoped the cleaners would be able to sort.
Excellent.
Which was Sharpie. So I was like, oh, I apologise for that. Which would have been really funny to cross that line with the forehead signature, but it is what it is. And I met Jake, who I've spoken to a few times, just sort of like messaged about like just New Balance, because he's New Balance as well, and like what he gets from them. And so he's been like a really useful like source of information for me, like using the older athletes you have.
Yeah.
But yeah, mini marathon was great as a springboard, as I say, to the confidence, which was just before the 5K. So I was like, I know I'm in a good position. I know I'm in a good place. I'm one of like the fastest in the country. This track season is my chance to prove it. And I think I was then able to go on and show that. And I think races like the mini marathon on the road were really important for that.
There's a fantastic shot of you. I think it comes up even if you just Google image your name of you in the all black kit, which I always think it's quite a cool look.
Oh, it's awesome. I love it.
It's nice, isn't it? Yeah. With you kind of breaking the tape essentially at London Mini Marathon, and you can kind of see the kind of like real. You really look pleased.
It's just I think it was as much a pain shout as it was a happy shout.
Yeah.
My head was spinning, but I think it was. I think that was the first time I've crossed like a finish line of a like decent level national event. Like I'd never broken the tape before that. I think it was awesome to have the chance to be able to do that.
Do you feel like you got a little bit more exposure because of that? Was there much media stuff posted?
Yeah, I think as much as like it's not like a major event on the calendar, like you sort of look at it as a chance to build into it. I think it's being in front before the London Marathon and like having all the media there anyway. I think there is a lot of exposure that you get from it. So as much as it's not like a huge event in terms of the people like around you they wouldn't look at the mini marathon alongside like national champs. There's a lot more exposure you can get from mini marathon and be able to like reach out to more people using that rather than compared to a national championship, which as good as like Athletics Weekly and that like as good a job as they do, there's obviously less exposure to like the big senior events.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's quite cool being in the room with two London Mini Marathon winners, actually. That's must be a rare moment. It's a rarefied room to be in. Do you ever think much about exposure in terms of doing things like this, podcast chats, and moving through the next 10 years? Because there are, as you know, if you were a footballer, it's a very different thing. It's a totally different world. From a monetary, financial perspective, from an exposure perspective, from, we see stadiums, like how often is it you see an athletics event stadium are just packed with roaring fans? It's a totally different thing. Do you ever think much about getting your profile out there or name out there a little bit more? Or are you someone that likes to remain a little more anonymous and let the performances speak? Where are you at on that?
I think especially with America, I think getting my name out there was really important to me. Just in terms of coaches reach out to you through social media as much as I reached out to them. A lot of them came back and reached out to me through social media. So I think I've been trying to sort of push that a little bit more in recent years because I was never particularly active on it. I quite like being able to show like what I can do and like show like the bad things as well as the good. Because it is tough at the end of the day, and like it is sport. Yeah, trying to get my name out there, trying to like sort of gain a bit of a standing, especially in sort of like youth events at the moment. As much as like I know I'm not like mega influential, I'm not a world champion or anything. I can't be.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Of course, it's not going to do as much difference as I'll be able to help others with yet until I become eligible for like pro contracts and all that kind of thing. In which case, I'll probably need to build it up a lot more in the next few years.
Do you feel like you've got better at handling pressure is the question. The reason I ask that, James, is because when you start to put these performances forward, and it's great to execute, run a 14:03, but what happens is around you start to get a little bit of a buzz of, oh, have you seen James Dargan? Yeah. He might go for sub 14 next, or he's going to go out to American, all this. Have you got good at kind of, whether it be blocking out that noise or just taking that noise in and being confident in yourself? How do you deal with that pressure?
As cliche as it sounds, I love that pressure. I love being able to stand on the start line. As much as everyone says you learn from your failure, I think there's a lot that you can learn from being able to like win and trying to sort of like defend the throne. So I think I was going into races last year, being able just to go, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough kind of thing, like hitting races, being able to control it and like knowing that the pressure's on me. I think I love being able to have a bit more of that like focused towards me, because it means that I can play my mind games. I can do what I want to do the night before, and just sort of be one of the ones that people look at to go, that's where I want to be, that's who I want to beat. And I think that helps me as much as it helps them, and it helps to sort of push everyone forward, which I think is really important.
I think that's one of the huge differences then. That's one of the reasons I would back you to have a great chance of having some success in your 20s, because I think that from what I've experienced, that pressure that people receive, everyone at that level gets it, and it's what do you do with that pressure? Yeah. And those that can handle it and are mature and know how to channel it and use it to assist their performance, will always do better than the person who it starts to weigh on, it crushes them down a bit. So I think that's really important. So if you can maintain that over the years, I think that'll be a fantastic thing. Let's close off then and finally talk about what's coming up next, which is the American chapter. There's a lot of unknowns for sure, so I don't think we need to talk about, there's not many questions to ask you because it hasn't happened yet, but I guess the main one is, like you say, assuming all exam results go well and everything's all nicely lined up, I believe it will, you're going to Stanford. Think did you choose Stanford, and are you looking forward to it?
We'll hit the are you looking forward to it, because that is, like, as cliche as it sounds, it's not real to me. Like, I think I've always looked at running as sort of a way to get me to America before. I think only in recent years has it changed. But I think ever since I watched like Charles Hicks win the Europeans, who runs for Stanford, I think I've looked to America, and Stanford's always been the first one that I've looked at and gone, it's incredible academics. It's in California, like very different weather from here. And just generally, like, it's just been the one to go to for me, in my opinion, as good as obviously like all American schools are. I think Stanford's always been like the dream. And I think when I got to be able to visit it, and it suddenly started becoming real to me, I was just like this could happen. Like I can genuinely make this happen if I keep on top of everything, like all of the like so-called sacrifices that I've made. It can make things happen, and I think I'm incredibly excited for like how everything could go. As I've said, I've left room for it to develop, and I think I can be able to channel that in terms of more mileage. They've got private chefs out there that are going to make all my food.
Amazing.
Like, it's just so different, and I think I'm so excited for the chance to be able to do all the stuff that I haven't been able to do, because as I say, as I call them limited resources. I've been very lucky with how I've been able to develop, but there's still only so much I can do without a ridiculously strong support team and a ridiculously strong just like team of guys racing and running with me, around me, which I think I haven't had the proper experience of, and I'm like, I can't describe how excited I am for it.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. I think it's been absolutely fantastic, James. I think it's one of those moments. Also, anyone's ever going to say to you, "Oh, yeah, really, just embrace the moment" and all that stuff. But it is the best advice. I think it's the thing that you can do is just try and slow time down a little bit, be patient with it, and just let things come and go. There's these American experiences, from what I hear, I've spoken to Jack Rowe, I've spoken to Woody, before he's going out there, I've spoken to Claire Duck, who's been there. Everyone, it's not just a constant up, it will be an up and down experience. It'll be a bit of a roller coaster, but it's about you being flexible, I think, to bob and weave with those changes and those differences, and just take each day as it comes and do what you can out there and just try to get the most out of it, of this opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
James, just to say, I wish you all the best in America and career in general. Fingers crossed, now that we've chatted, you at 18, hopefully we can sort of do almost like biannual updates or something. You can come back on and we'll check in with you when you pop back from America, and certainly when America's over. It'll be really cool to track your career, and as you know, I'm a huge supporter of you, James, and I wish you all the best. So thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
We've released some new items in our range of high quality, durable and bright orange Jog On running kit, which you can find at thisisjogon.com. Thank you. I'm Harry Morgan. Go for that run. And this is Jog On.